Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, listening to the debate in this House and examining the bill that was brought and then the motion and listening to the debate, Mr. Speaker, we are declining in our standards in this House terribly. We owe the people of our country better. We are being paid here and listen to the quality of the debate. Not a single study, everybody speaks about a study, and not a single study quoted from. Not a single statistic provided. Mr. Ram, when you listen, Mr. Speaker, let me begin. In 2015, for the purpose of the 2015 elections, when the two parties coalesced together, the AFC made it a platform promise through its chairman, then Nigel Hughes, made it a manifesto promise to legalize marijuana. That was a platform promise made during the 2015 campaign. They made another platform promise, constitutional reform. That was the two major platform promises. The PPP never promised in 2015 anything about legalizing marijuana. We never promised that. Not in 2015. So 2015, you won the elections and you occupied the government. And as the distinguished member of Agriculture, Education explained, in a series of articles reported in the newspaper, you did not deliver upon that promise. You did not deliver upon that promise. Mr. Ramjatan wants us to praise Mr. Carrington because rightfully the honorable member tried, but he was a lone ranger. He brought a bill and placed it before the House. And with all of that, Ramjatan, just the honorable member just said, he never took a step as leader of that party to prosecute that bill in the House. He never did that. And what did the governing APNU say about the bill? That they will not put it through the House. They will not put it on the agenda. They will not enact it. And that is your record. And before you want to be taken seriously with your motion, you have to stand in this House and tell the Guyanese people that you promised them and you failed to deliver on that promise. That's the first thing that you have to do. And now that you are in the opposition, you now want to piggyback on the PPP and you want us to pass the bill for you. Well, we are not going to do that for you. We promised the people of this country during our campaign that we will reform the marijuana law, that we will remove from the law custodial sentences on small amount. The PPP promised that, and the PPP will deliver that to the people of this country. So don't come and tell us here about how bad the situation is and how great is the bill. You did not pass it. And the people put you on that side because of that. So that's the first thing that we have to establish. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, they have a motion, they are in opposition. The executive government's, one of their principal functions, one of their constitutional duties is to pass legislation. But in a democratic scenario, the law also allows opposition the facility to pass legislation while they are in opposition. But the law says, Mr. Speaker, and the parliamentary practices that you have to make a case. It is a power that is highly circumscribed. And that is why there is a motion. It is not automaticity. You have to present a motion and you have to convince us and the people by that motion why you should be permitted to exercise a power that the people didn't give you in the first place at the election. That is to pass law. When you stood up, you did not even know how to read the motion. You did not even know how to read the motion. The speaker had to tell you that you had to say something else. So ill-prepared you were. So ill-prepared you were. Mr. Speaker, the position is so strict in England. The position is so strict in England, Mr. Speaker, that the Chancery Division of the High Court exercised a special jurisdiction to grant an injunction if a speaker errs and allows a private member bill to proceed. So strict is the procedure. The content of the bill has to be examined, Mr. Speaker. And I went into Orskay Maze. Mr. Speaker, and it has what should be the subject of private members' bill and what should not be. For example, Mr. Speaker, there was once a bill to sell intoxicating liquor on Sundays in certain communities in London. And that was allowed by the Speaker to be a private member bill. And upon second reading, while the debate was going on, the court granted an injunction to stop the debate on the ground that selling liquor on Sunday is such a public thing that it cannot be the subject of a private member motion. Marijuana, legalizing marijuana is such an important national thing that it should never be the subject of a private person's motion. So this thing is inherently wrong. Inherently wrong, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other important point that I want to make is that, and this is what Orskay May says, private bills have frequently been objected to on the ground that they should have been brought in as public bills. Most of these objections are sustained and the bills are withdrawn or not proceeded with, simply because of the subject of the bill. The other point I want to make, Mr. Speaker, is that what is the position when there's a government bill? Once there's a government bill, Mr. Speaker, as there is in this case, and that subject matter is determined to be of a public nature, once the government tables a bill, the next step is for that entire private bill to be withdrawn and for the government bill to take precedence. And that is exactly the position. Even if you follow their own debate, they have said repeatedly to us how important this is to Guyana, to all the people of Guyana, to all families. That can never be an issue to be the subject of a private member bill. And Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, we have a bill which will be read later on the agenda. And that by itself, in principle, defeats the motion that is being moved by my friend. But quite apart from that, Mr. Speaker, let's now go to the bill that they are proposing. Because we don't want on this side for anyone to feel that we are using our majority and our numerical strength to vote down motions or bills or any policy. We are going to show reason why. And that is what every member on this side has been doing from the beginning of the debate. And that is why I am saying that on the other side, you're not hearing argument of a corresponding caliber and quality to continue and sustain an educational and edifying debate. It's a one-way street, but we'll continue. Mr. Speaker, what the bill does that my friend is promulgating, and firstly, Mr. Speaker, the other thing is, and the Honorable Minister of Education spoke about it, and rightfully so, because plagiarism is an academic wrong. It's an academic wrong which we should not perpetuate nor perpetrate in this House. And the Honorable Member comes here and word for word, Carrington spelled one of the words wrong, he spelled it wrong. The only exception was the quantum. Only exception. Carrington made 10 mistakes, he made 10 mistakes. If we want to be taken seriously, we have to improve, seriously. Joke, heckling aside. You have your dignity to preserve and protect. Mr. Speaker, Clause 2 of the bill proposes to amend Section 4(1)(a)(1) by deleting the term of imprisonment as a penalty for possession of any narcotic or any narcotic substance represented or held out to be a narcotic. As it stands, Section 4(1)(a), which deals with summary conviction, carry a penalty of a fine of not less than 30,000, together with imprisonment for not less than 3 years, nor more than 5 years. On the other hand, Section 4(1)(a)(2), which deals with conviction and indictment, carries a penalty of not less than 30,000 or 3 times the market value of the narcotic, whichever is greater, together with the imprisonment for not less than 5 years, nor more than 10 years. So what they're doing is the bill proposes to take out the imprisonment part. That's all. So some of the honorable members on that side who have spoken on this debate do not understand even the bill that they are proposing, because they speak about decriminalization of possession of marijuana. That is not what your bill is doing. Your bill is simply removing custodial sentence from the offense up to a certain amount. So they don't even understand. And listen to him. He's telling me to talk about my own bill. And he bring a bill that he's asking me to debate. This is the level of mediocrity, Mr. Speaker, that you should not tolerate in this House. So he doesn't understand the difference between removal of custodial sentence and decriminalization. Decriminalization for your education means it's no longer a criminal offense. Here the fine remains. What your bill does is simply take away the imprisonment. But the difficulty with Clause 2, Mr. Speaker, in the Honorable Member proposal, is that the opposition misses its own objective, its policy objective, by failing to realize that narcotic in the act, because what they did, they simply cut out the sentence part. So but what they're doing there is doing that in relation to all narcotic. Narcotic in the act includes 100 and something substances, which includes cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, a whole set of things. So what they're doing is not cannabis and marijuana alone. They are removing custodial sentence from their bill from cocaine, heroin, and every other narcotic. How can you bring such preposterous work to the highest house in this country? How can you do that? That's the level of quality of representation that you offer the people of this country. You have not read what you brought. So, Mr. Speaker, that's the first major blunder that this thing has to be rejected out of hand. It legalizes, it takes off custodial sentence from every narcotic under the act. Every narcotic. And up to 500 grams. So all the cocaine that they were talking about shipping, they are now going to legalize it. They are now going to attach a fine, and the fine is some $10,000. That's what they're doing. Look. The comrade in the back can't believe that you did that. He's saying, who believes in that? He's saying, who believes? You can't believe he did that. Read it, my friend. Read it, my brother. Read it. You are young. You are young. You have a future. Read it. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the first thing I would like to. The failure to recognize that narcotics mean more than ganja, marijuana, and cannabis in the act. Also, the opposition failed to address Section 4.2, which deals with possession of any narcotic or a substance held out to be a narcotic at specified places. So they never touched that. So these places include any premises, any education institution, public place, and public place has a wide meaning. It means any road, any highway, any place, and a whole set of things. So they have not addressed that section at all. So you can be on the highway, you get off under one section, and then under the other section, because of the place where you are at, you can be convicted. That is so exactly what Mr. Carrington did. That is the copy. Never read the act as a whole, just amend one section and leave all the consequential mistakes or amendments that are supposed to be implemented to make the amendment comprehensive and fluid. They omit to do all of that. And then, Mr. Speaker, Clause 3 of the bill seeks to amend Section 5.2 of the Act to increase the quantity of cannabis or cannabis resin a person may have in their possession to be liable for the offense of trafficking from 15 to 500 grams. However, and Mr. Speaker, what they have done here is turn the Act, the entire scheme of the Act, upside down. Because possession is a different offense and trafficking is a different offense. It carries different policy consideration. It carries different principles. It carries different penalties. It even carries different modes of trial. So they have turned the whole thing upside down by basically treating possession and trafficking as the same. In fact, one can argue that they have abolished the offense of trafficking. Because if you make possession up to 500 grams mere offense without custodial sentence, then the offense of trafficking almost gone. You have to start from 200 going up. And Mr. Ramchadan was saying, so what? So what? If the man is found with 30.5 grams, you going to give him the jail? Well, if it's 200.5, the same jail too. It's same jail. So, Mr. Speaker, were you to insert the amendment in the current form into the Principal Act, the Act would have become inoperable. And Defense Counsel would have a field day because the whole scheme of the legislation gone whack, out of sync. And then, Mr. Speaker, there's other problems with the bill. Clause 4, as I said, proposed by deleting the word cannabis from the provision. That is all that it does, right? But then you have other offenses like smoking, inhaling, sniffing, or otherwise using cannabis. You have a whole set of related offenses that they have not amended either. So it can be lawful to you have the cannabis, according to them. It can be lawful to have it, but you can't smoke it. You can't inhale it. You can't light it because they didn't amend the other section. It's still an offense to smoke. It's still an offense. So, Mr. Speaker, then, so you have a whole set of offenses that are not can be enforced. And then, Mr. Speaker, the Act over the years have been amended. And there are provisions that allow a court to take into account if a person, for example, pleads personal use. And that over the years, the law has been ameliorated by different small amendments, etc. And those are in the law. But those have not been touched. Those have not been touched. And if you amend the major ones, you have to continue right through. Because it's a running act. It's a huge act, Mr. Speaker. This is the size of the principal act. How can you amend this huge act by 2 sentences? How? How? Listen, he's carrying on. He did not read anything. He did not read his bill. He did not read the motion. He did not read our bill. And I know he didn't read it because I know that he's more intelligent than what he told us here today. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a disaster. This is a disaster that the easier we wrap it up and take it to Sivan, wrap it up neatly, let the Parliament staff take all the papers, wrap it up neatly, take it to Sivan's, and go by Hagwash, and you dump it there. That's where this belongs. And we have a bill, Mr. Speaker. We have a bill that we don't profess it to be perfect. Let me begin by saying so. We promise consultation, and our bill is going to be subject of consultation through a process in the Assembly. But we have put out something here. As once it's going to be subject to consultation, it's not our final position. But it's a bill that we are putting here. And Mr. Speaker, in this bill, we have tried as far as possible to follow the position in the Caribbean. Repeated references have been made to the Caribbean study, and I thought that one would have read out excerpts of the report to guide us. And Mr. Speaker, so CARICOM at the level of the Attorneys General, the committee is called the LAC, the Legal Affairs Committee of CARICOM, resolved that as far as possible, legislation that are common, that are going to be considered to be common in the Caribbean, should go through that kind of process. And as Minister Manichan said, each country has a facility to deal with the idiosyncrasies of their own jurisdiction, should it be different. And the approach adopted at CARICOM was the same. And Mr. Speaker, as a result of that report, countries have begun to implement. Barbados, the position is, no more than 14 grams of cannabis or cannabis resin, and you have mandatory counseling. That's the penalty. 14 grams. It's an offense, but the offense carries mandatory counseling. St. Vincent, 56 grams or less cannabis or cannabis resin, it's a ticket offense. Belize, 10 grams or less of cannabis or cannabis resin, ticket offense. St. Christopher Nevis, 56 grams or cannabis resin and 56 grams of cannabis or 15 grams of cannabis resin, that is permissible. St. Vincent. Mr. Ralph Gonzalez specifically departed as a campaign promise, and that is what he implemented. Trinidad and Tobago, similar. Dominica, 28 grams or less of cannabis or cannabis resin, that is also not an offense. Antigua and Barbuda, 15 grams or less, offense, but 16 to more than 5 pounds is possession and imprisonment. Jamaica, 56 grams or less is a ticketed offense. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the theme of the Caribbean. And that side is proposing 200 grams. 500 grams, my apologies. Completely out of sync. Mr. Carrington was more conservative. Where they got their 500 grams from? And Mr. Speaker, they spoke about consultations. I mean, we have no care about what we say in this house. We just say anything that comes to our mind. This is a small country. We know politics in this country. If they consulted with one organization, it would have been on In the Ring, the breakfast show, the afternoon show, the Lampy Pampy show. Not a single consultation was done. Yet he's here, the honorable member, telling us that they consulted. That is, Mr. Speaker, the contempt that they have for our people. No, nobody they consulted with, and they're standing here and telling the people that we consulted with you. We consulted with you, and you tell us, bring 500 grams. What kind of deception is that? Mr. Speaker, we have in our bill, Mr. Speaker, have followed the CARICOM guidelines, and we have articulated and formulated a position which is in keeping with our manifesto, and we still say that it is not our final position, that the people of Guyana and those constituencies that may be peculiarly more affected by this issue, we are going to offer them, as well as everyone else, an opportunity to participate. And out of that process will come the most consensual possible bill, because you have competing interests. I have spoken to the Pandits, I have spoken to the Maulanas, I have spoken to the priests, I have spoken to the Rastafarian too. So they have competing interests. So we can't go, Mr. Ramjit, and say, well, 10% of the people will only be affected. We can't be as irresponsible as him and pass a law for 10% of the population. We are the government, and I believe that that is why they put this 500 grams. Reckless politics. What they want to do is to put us on the back foot. That they have gone ultra-liberal. But that's not liberal, that's insanity. 500 grams is insanity. So, Mr. Speaker, out of necessity, we have to reject the motion that is before this House. And, Mr. Speaker, at the appropriate time, we'll table our bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.